It's never Dean. Let's just set the record straight. It's never Dean, okay? You watch Gilmore Girls?
No.
Disney's attempt to reshape its legacy for a modern audience has resulted in a collapse few expected, but many now see as inevitable. What was meant to be a bold reinvention has instead turned into a public failure marked by empty theaters, disappointing ticket sales, and a growing sense that the studio no longer understands or respects the audience that built its empire. For the past 2 years, Disney has relentlessly pushed to modernize its most iconic stories, yet in the process, it has drifted further and further away from the values, themes, and emotional resonance that once made those stories timeless. The fallout surrounding Rachel Zegler's Snow White stands as the clearest example of this growing disconnect. The trouble began long before the film reached theaters. Leaked set photos quickly ignited backlash as fans struggled to recognize the character they had loved for generations. The visual changes alone were enough to raise concerns. But the situation escalated dramatically when the film's lead actress began openly criticizing the original 1937 Snow White, referring to the prince as a stalker, Lindo 1937 Snow White, dismissing the story as outdated and making polarizing political statements that alienated large portions of the audience. She didn't merely distance herself from the source material, she actively undermined it. At one point, she even encouraged people who disagreed with her views not to see the film at all. For a project of this scale, tied to one of Disney's most treasured properties, this was nothing short of self-sabotage. Rather than addressing the controversy head-on, Disney opted for quiet damage control. Interviews became scarce, public messaging softened, and executives appeared to hope the backlash would simply fade away. As release day approached, the studio launched a rushed, last-minute marketing blitz designed to shift attention back to spectacle and nostalgia. But when opening weekend arrived, the results spoke louder than any promotional campaign ever could. Across the country, reports poured in describing eerily empty theaters. Prime IMAX locations sat nearly vacant. Weekend showings that should have been packed were reduced to a handful of scattered viewers. Even Disney's own flagship theaters failed to draw crowds. From Washington, D.C. to Utah, from Montreal to Virginia and Florida, the pattern was unmistakable. This wasn't an isolated market failure or a regional fluke, it was widespread audience rejection. Social media quickly became flooded with photos and videos showing entire rows of untouched seats, blue chairs stretching across auditoriums with barely a soul in sight. These images spread rapidly, reinforcing the narrative that Snow White had failed to resonate with moviegoers on a fundamental level. Financial projections only deepened the concern. Despite Disney's frantic efforts to salvage momentum, analysts estimated an opening weekend of roughly $55 million, an alarming figure for a film with such a massive budget and global brand recognition. Comparisons were immediately drawn to The Little Mermaid, another live-action remake that struggled to meet expectations and was already considered a disappointment. In that context, Snow White wasn't just underperforming. It was shaping up to be one of the most significant box office flops Disney had faced in years. The core issue, however, goes far beyond numbers. Disney lost sight of its audience. A beloved classic was stripped of its identity, reshaped to fit contemporary ideological trends, and entrusted to leadership that appeared indifferent to the emotional connection fans had maintained for nearly a century. Instead of honoring the film's legacy, Disney treated it as something to be corrected, re-educated, or replaced. The result was predictable. Longtime fans felt dismissed. New audiences felt unenthusiastic, and no group felt truly invited. Critical reception only reinforced the disaster. Many expected reviewers to embrace the film's modernized approach, anticipating glowing scores in the 90s. Instead, the reaction was brutal. Snow White debuted with one of the lowest ratings ever recorded for a live-action Disney remake. Only 46% of audiences rated it above average, while Rotten Tomatoes reflected overwhelming dissatisfaction. IMDb users delivered a crushing 2, 1 out of 10, and Google reviews sank even lower, landing at an astonishing 1.4. These numbers weren't the result of a coordinated campaign, they reflected genuine viewer disappointment. Audience reactions echoed the critics. Ticket sales resembled infamous empty theater releases from past box office failures, with first-hand accounts describing nearly deserted screenings. Viewers who went in hoping the film would surprise them left frustrated, describing long stretches of discomfort and disengagement. Claims that this was the best live-action remake in years rang hollow to those who actually sat through the nearly 2-hour runtime, many of whom described the experience as exhausting rather than entertaining. While the lead actress's talent and appearance were frequently acknowledged, critics argued that her public behavior played a significant role in shaping the backlash. Her tone on social media, perceived elitism, and dismissive attitude toward dissenting opinions became inseparable from the film itself. In Hollywood, public figures who openly antagonize large segments of their audience typically face swift consequences. Yet, this controversy was allowed to spiral unchecked. For many observers, the conclusion became unavoidable. Disney's handling of Snow White had crossed a point of no return. Ultimately, this failure serves as a stark warning not just for Disney but for the entire industry. Modernizing classics purely to align with political trends risks sacrificing the very elements that made those stories endure. Snow White was not rejected because audiences resist change. It was rejected because the change came without respect for the story, the fans, or the legacy behind it. What was once Disney's crown jewel has become a cautionary tale, illustrating how quickly trust, goodwill, and cultural relevance can be lost when a studio forgets who it is making movies for. At this point, many critics argue that Disney has reached a crossroads, and Rachel Zegler has become the symbol of a much larger problem. To them, it makes no sense to release a Snow White film built around one of Disney's most beloved American characters while placing it in the hands of an actress who has openly antagonized more than half the country, including voters who recently helped elect Donald Trump. For some, this moment represents a turning point and inflection point where Disney must decide whether it will continue doubling down on ideology or attempt to rebuild trust with a fractured audience. The frustration isn't just about politics either. Industry voices have begun pointing out deeper issues, including long-standing complaints about how Disney treats creatives behind the scenes, from writers to actors, with some insiders openly stating that residual payments alone would shock the public if they were widely known. Amid mounting backlash, Rachel Zegler appeared to reverse course. She issued statements walking back her inflammatory political remarks, including her comments about Trump voters, and promised to avoid political outbursts moving forward. On the surface, it looked like an attempt at damage control. But according to Hollywood insiders, the shift may have come far too late. Reports suggest that Disney executives have quietly begun distancing themselves from the Snow White star after months of controversy, public missteps, and escalating criticism. Behind closed doors, the whispers are growing louder. Some believe her actions may have severely damaged a production reportedly carrying a budget of around $200 million, leaving her future in Hollywood uncertain. Zegler's comments didn't exist in a vacuum. They compounded an already volatile situation surrounding the Snow White remake. Her public dismissal of the original 1937 film, combined with repeated political outbursts, alienated a sizable portion of the audience Disney could least afford to lose. What might have been framed as a bold reinterpretation instead became a lightning rod for frustration, resentment, and backlash. As the film continues to struggle at the box office and negative press refuses to die down, Zegler now appears to be scrambling to salvage her public image. Whether this sudden shift in tone represents genuine reflection or a last-ditch effort to save face remains an open question. What is clear is that the damage may already be done. The bigger concern now is whether Zegler can recover at all. With controversy still escalating and Disney reportedly keeping its distance, many are asking whether this marks the beginning of the end for a star once seen as destined for superstardom. The downfall of Snow White may not be the only tragedy unfolding. Zegler's own Hollywood fairy tale could be nearing an abrupt and unceremonious conclusion. Much of this controversy can be traced back to her own words. When discussing the remake, Zegler openly described her version of Snow White as a 2022 version, distancing it from the original film. She criticized the 1937 cartoon for focusing heavily on romance, referring to the prince as someone who literally stalks her, and labeled the dynamic as strange and outdated. According to her, this new Snow White would not revolve around love or a prince, but would instead focus on independence and self-discovery. While some applauded this approach as progressive, many longtime fans felt that Disney was discarding the emotional heart of the story in favor of chasing modern trends.
Yeah, what was that like, Rachel?
Yeah, tell me what it's like, Don. No, I mean it's all professional work, so it's very fun. And
Disney, once celebrated as the ultimate storyteller, suddenly found itself trapped inside a narrative it never anticipated. At the center of the chaos stood Rachel Zegler, the rising star chosen to bring new life to an iconic role. What began as a historic casting moment, a Latina actress stepping into one of Disney's most recognizable characters, quickly turned divisive. Supporters hailed it as long overdue representation, while critics accused Disney of prioritizing trend-driven decisions over respect for the original material. For fans of the classic Snow White, the changes felt less like an update and more like a rejection of everything that made the story timeless. As rumors surfaced about reimagining the Seven Dwarfs entirely, tensions only escalated. Audiences who had embraced live-action remakes like Cinderella began to feel that this wasn't about modernizing a classic, but rewriting it altogether. Snow White ceased to be just another remake and instead became a battleground for everything audiences either loved or hated about Disney's evolving identity. Zegler's transformation from casting controversy to full-blown lightning rod accelerated dramatically when she entered the political arena following Donald Trump's re-election. A fiery Instagram post targeting Trump and his supporters went viral almost instantly. Her statement that Trump and his voters would never know peace ignited outrage across the political spectrum. Conservatives viewed it as a direct attack on millions of Americans, many of whom still make up Disney's core audience. Calls to boycott Snow White spread rapidly online, and hashtags demanding her removal gained traction. The backlash wasn't limited to conservatives. Moderates expressed discomfort with the tone of her remarks, seeing them as emblematic of the increasingly hostile political discourse dominating social media. Even progressives were divided, with some praising her candor while others questioned whether such rhetoric served any constructive purpose. Once again, Disney found itself at the center of a cultural firestorm it struggled to control. As the controversy intensified, public calls for Disney to fire Zegler grew louder. News segments highlighted her comments, and critics questioned how a family-oriented brand could move forward with the lead actress who openly expressed contempt for a large portion of the country. Eventually, Zegler issued an apology, stating that her emotions had gotten the best of her and acknowledging that she'd contributed to negative discourse. But for many observers, the apology rang hollow, especially given the timing. The controversy escalated dramatically when Rachel Zegler posted a series of explosive political statements online, including a message telling Donald Trump directly, "F you," followed by sweeping insults aimed at the roughly 75 million Americans who voted for him. In another post, she described herself as speechless, lamenting what she called another 4 years of hatred, and claiming the country was being pushed toward a world she no longer wanted to live in. She went even further by accusing Trump supporters of enabling harm and blaming Elon Musk's leadership of Twitter, now X, for helping facilitate Trump's re-election. What may have felt like an emotional outburst to her instantly became a full-scale public relations disaster for Disney. For a company that has long relied on political neutrality to maintain broad appeal across families, generations, and ideologies, Zegler's comments dragged Disney into a cultural and political firestorm it never asked for and clearly wasn't prepared to manage. What stood out most was Disney's response, or lack of one. Unlike previous controversies, most notably the swift firing of Gina Carano for far less incendiary social media activity, Disney remained silent. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Carano was removed within days, while Zegler faced no immediate consequences. To many observers, this double standard reinforced accusations of hypocrisy and selective enforcement, further eroding trust in the company's leadership. This incident wasn't an anomaly either. Zegler had already developed a reputation for being outspoken to the point of controversy, having previously criticized the marketing of West Side Story and publicly aired grievances about projects tied to her own career. Some fans viewed her unfiltered nature as refreshing, but others saw it as reckless and self-indulgent. Either way, she increasingly became a polarizing figure, someone who seemed perpetually surrounded by backlash. By the time she issued an apology, many felt the damage was irreversible. Her statement was widely perceived as hollow and calculated, more like a carefully scripted PR response than a genuine attempt at accountability. Rather than calming tensions, the apology only fueled further criticism. Social media erupted with comparisons to past celebrity apologies that were seen as more sincere, more personal, and more grounded in humility. Memes spread rapidly, mocking the tone and wording of her statement. Fans accused Disney of prioritizing optics over responsibility, suggesting the apology existed solely to limit fallout rather than address the deeper issues. It became another example in a growing list of PR missteps that highlighted how much public expectations have shifted. Audiences today demand authenticity, and polished statements that feel manufactured often do more harm than good. The consequence extended far beyond Ziegler herself. The backlash engulfed the entire Snow White project, transforming the film into a symbol of Disney's broader struggle to connect with its audience. Even before the political controversy, the live-action remake was already on unstable footing, with fans divided over creative decisions. Afterward, it became a magnet for boycotts, skepticism, and widespread criticism. When the teaser trailer dropped, it received over 1.3 million dislikes on YouTube, with comment sections flooded by complaints about the visuals, tone, and perceived lack of respect for the original film. Instead of building excitement, the trailer amplified the belief that Disney had lost touch with its core fanbase. One of the most contentious changes involved reimagining the Seven Dwarfs as a diverse group of magical companions. While the decision followed public criticism of the original portrayal, it backfired badly. Advocates for actors with dwarfism accused Disney of erasing meaningful opportunities, while longtime fans felt that the charm, whimsy, and heart of the original characters had been stripped away in favor of forced reinvention. What was meant to be progressive instead satisfied almost no one. Behind the scenes, reports painted an even bleaker picture. Costly reshoots, production delays, and internal creative disputes suggested a project in turmoil. Insiders claimed Disney was scrambling to salvage the film, pouring millions into revisions in hopes of avoiding a catastrophic flop. With a reported budget of around $200 million, Snow White would need to generate approximately $600 million, just to break even, a daunting goal made even more unrealistic by growing calls for boycotts. This backlash reflects a larger pattern. Audiences are growing increasingly impatient with Disney's live-action remakes. While films like Cinderella and The Jungle Book struck a balance between honoring their originals and offering fresh interpretations, others, such as The Lion King and Mulan, were criticized for feeling soulless and overly calculated. Snow White now appears to be the latest and perhaps most glaring example of this trend. It embodies the challenge Disney faces in trying to recapture the magic of its past while navigating a modern audience that is more skeptical, more vocal, and far less forgiving. Ziegler's continued commentary only deepened the divide. She warned followers about using Elon Musk's platform, framed Trump's re-election as a threat to future generations, and suggested the country was becoming unlivable for her daughter. While she eventually apologized, critics argued that the timing and tone undermined its sincerity. Many questioned the wisdom of allowing a film's lead actress to publicly antagonize such a large portion of the audience in the middle of a major marketing push. To them, it felt like a strategic failure at every level. There is a growing belief that someone at Disney eventually intervened, urging Ziegler to stop posting before further damage was done. But by then, the narrative was already set. To critics, her approach to Snow White, combined with what they describe as ideological hostility, poisoned the project from the start. Comparisons to past firings only intensified resentment, reinforcing the idea that Disney applies its standards selectively. To many critics, Rachel Zegler has become one of the most unlikable figures in Hollywood, which is no small feat in an industry already full of polarizing personalities. What sets her apart, they argue, is not just controversy, but a repeated willingness to push boundaries in ways that feel reckless, especially considering she's attached to a Disney project. Disney is a company that has historically marketed itself as family-focused, broadly appealing, and culturally unifying. Against that backdrop, Zegler's public behavior struck many as shockingly out of step. Following a landslide election victory for President Trump, there was little doubt among observers that her inflammatory rhetoric would ignite backlash. The timing, tone, and scale of her comments made it nearly impossible for the situation to blow over quietly. What raised even more eyebrows is how Disney responded internally. As executives spoke to analysts and shareholders about upcoming studio releases and future projects, The live-action Snow White remake, the very film that originally put Disney on the map in 1937, was noticeably absent from those conversations.